Good morning, and welcome to another ironic introduction to another video. So you've decided to play Marvel Contest of Champions, or perhaps you're the friend of someone who's convinced you to play the game. This is a comprehensive new player guide because my own brother started playing, and I wanted to give him a reliable resource he could come back to over and over again just to kind of get him through these first few days / couple of weeks, and he could have this resource for information to answer a lot of the questions that might recur, as there's a lot to go on, a lot to learn. And this is kind of like a really good way to have it. So in the description below, I will have timestamps for everything I discuss in this video, as well as many links to other people's videos, because some of this content is already out there, so I don't feel the need to make another video for it, but I can give you a reliable resource for it. So that said, let me first see if I can convince you to pay the beginner start dash tax. In Marvel Contest of Champions, it was $16 US, not including the Deadpool deal, which was for $2, which is essentially just a collector's thing. But if you want that collector's item, it is just another $2. And later down the line, there is a $5 deal, which will let you unlock dexterity. That's something you don't need, and I told my brother not to buy it. So $16 is the start dash tax. If you look in the description below, I'm going to post a link for all of the arguments I make for why you should pay that start dash tax. I'll give you a moment to pause, maybe go click on that if you want to be convinced, or at least hear my argument for why. Okay, so next up, make your account when you have at least 1 hour, but preferably 2 or more to play. You don't want to make this account, play for 10 minutes, and then walk away, because when you start off right away, you're going to be leveling up very quickly, and so that initial startup time is the best time to like really hammer out the content. And again, it's going to be a lot faster and a lot more efficient if you do pay that start dash tax right away and unlock and buy those $16 worth of deals as soon as possible, because then those higher level champions, those higher power rated champions, will help you get through content much more quickly. That said, this guide in general is for both free-to-play and whales, so this will work even if you don't pay the beginner start dash tax. I think it's very, very much so worth, but maybe you don't have that money, maybe you don't want to spend that money. I totally understand. This guide is comprehensive for both sides. Do note that for this guide in general, the less time you have, the more you should prioritize things outside of arena, and the more time you have, the more you need to prioritize arena and kind of weave it into your gameplay, making sure you get your champion cooldowns. So that said, continuing the quick notes, all of your units are for masteries and energy refills only. Do not spend the units on anything else, and actually, until you all have unlocked parry and dexterity, don't spend your units on anything, because until you have those two masteries, you're not playing the game. You are playing a very, very diluted version of the game, and you're playing with half the controls essentially, because of how highly valuable those two controls are. So that said, that's where your units are for. Don't be tempted by anything else. It's very tempted on a lot of other things, and later on your units will become valuable for other things, but right now, starting off the game, that's where your units go. Ignore any other deal. So here's the first timestamp. So let me talk about masteries really quick. So speaking of parry and dexterity, when you start playing, you are going to be level locked on those, so you can't unlock them until a specific summoner level. But when you do reach that summoner level, you will be able to put a point into parry for some units, and then eventually a point into dexterity, I want to say several levels later. And then as far as like what you do with the rest of your points, well, ideally at one point you're going to want to put 3 points into parry, and then you leave dexterity at 1 point always. The reason you put 3 points into parry is the duration of the stun after a parry goes from 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, and the amount of damage you mitigate on a parry goes from 15% to 25%. But mostly that extra half-second stun means that in anything except for versus, you can get a virtually guaranteed heavy attack after a parry, as long as the champion you're facing doesn't have a reduced stun. But that's more complicated and for a later time. So that said, you will eventually want to get those 3 points in parry. I think this is incredibly valuable, especially for newer players. So if you can, go ahead and do that. And then after that, go ahead and put 1 point into strength. and then go ahead and put the rest of your points into greater strength while you build up the units to fully flesh out your masteries. Once you have your points in parry, your 3 points in parry, and your 1 point in dexterity, do feel free to climb up in this attack tree and unlock pierce. You'll only put 1 point there, and then while you're building up units, you can go ahead and max out lesser precision as well as lesser cruelty. But in the long run, you want to spend units to unlock precision and cruelty, and instead of dumping all your points into lesser precision and lesser cruelty, those points will go into regular precision and regular cruelty because of the massive amount of damage increase. And then after that, you're going to want to move in towards the defense tree, and you can go ahead and put 1 point across until you kind of just match this. Once you reach this point, you're past the beginner stage, so I don't need to go farther into depth here. This will be the next timestamp, and so this one is about prioritizing your time. So in this game, there's a lot to do. So first off, if you're playing for more than a couple hours at a time, if you're playing for more than an hour and a half ish at a time, feel free to start with arena, put your time in for arena, and then move to using your energy. But if you're only playing for like half an hour, don't even bother with arena here at this point. You're just better off progressing through the beginner stages of the game, and don't feel like you're missing out on anything because it's just a matter of how much time you have. So that said, some quick notes is use EXP boosts when you are questing. And whenever you are questing and you intend to play for 1 hour or longer, preferably you want to do this when your energy is full and you're just starting to use your energy so that you can get the most out of that EXP boost, as well as save your full refills, your full energy refills for as long as possible. Feel free to use the small refills whenever you need them, and ask for alliance help whenever you need it, but the full refills are worth more the higher summoner level you are, so you want to save those as long as possible to get the most value out of them. I would even make the argument that unless it's going to expire, you don't want to use it unless you have at least 30 energy. Honestly, you want as much as possible, but 30 is roughly the range where I say, okay, maybe now you can start using them. So that said, as far as time prioritization, go ahead and do the arena if you have the time and you're ready to commit. But if you're not, start with an Act 1 completion. Completely ignore the limited event. Just go straight for Act 1 completion. If it's too difficult for you because of your roster, do feel free to step back and go do the daily run of the upgrade materials, proving grounds, and the class catalyst daily. But you should be able to clear Act 1 fairly simply. You might have trouble here towards the end. But for the most part, this fight should be pretty reasonable. I'm just double checking really quick. Yeah, so for the most part, you should be able to get your standard completion of Act 1. You don't need to do a full exploration unless you're free to play and you're having trouble in the next stage of this. But go ahead and do that first run. Doing that will get you this thing called the Challenger bonus reward, and this is something that's really, really valuable. You definitely want that. Okay, so after you've done your Act 1 completion, not the full exploration, just the basic completion, do feel free to run your dailies for the basic catalyst as well as the class catalyst. So for the basic, you're going to want to run normal for the tier 2 basic, and for the class specific, you're going to run beginner and normal. Normal if you can full complete it. Not everybody can do it right away, so just run the beginner if you can't do a full completion of normal. That's totally reasonable. It does take a little bit of time to ramp up because you want that tier 1 class specific and that tier 2 class specific if possible, as you are going to be prioritizing your match towards 3 stars if possible. That said, once you've done your Act 1 completion, go ahead and do a beginner event completion run. Don't do a full exploration. It's not worth the energy, but it is worth the units if you just do a simple clear. And then after that, go for a normal event completion. And from here, you're going to climb difficulties of just completion runs until you find that you cannot do it. Once you cannot even complete the quest, and this is assuming you're not using revives, because you don't want to use revives here if you don't have to, go ahead and drop down a difficulty and do a full exploration of that, and then try to complete the higher difficulty. And if again you can't complete it, drop down 2 difficulties and do a full exploration of that. And that's how you will prioritize your limited event. And then once you've done everything you can in the limited event, you'll go back to completing the story, go through a completion run of Act 2, completion run of Act 3, completion run of Act 4, again until you hit a wall. And once you hit a wall, go back to the most recent act, do a full exploration of that, and then see if you can complete the next act from there. That said, when your energy is out, you want to use your time on Alliance Quest and Alliance War. You will be using champions that you don't use for your current questing, as they will get locked out. It's a little different for beginners, so sometimes you, like in some of the Alliance Quest maps, if you're running the lower ones, your characters don't get locked out. So just to be mindful, read the game; it will instruct you accordingly. And don't feel bad if you can't, if you're dying, don't feel the need to revive or anything. You are a new player. If you've joined an alliance, they know you're a new player. Just get that participation. Every once in a while, log back, jump back into that and move, because your energy can still be utilized by the rest of your alliance. Just get that participation trophy. It's worth it, I promise. So that said, when you participate in alliance quest and alliance wars, you get something called glory. And so if you're on the home screen here and you tap the bar and you go to store and then you go to glory, you can use that glory to buy these items here. And my general suggestion is to save your glory for as long as possible, but if you are really struggling, do feel free to buy maybe these class specific ones if that's what's holding you back. But otherwise, you're just going to want to hold it as long as possible until you can use it on higher mats, and past the point when you're no longer a beginner. That said, you're going to want to invest as few mats as possible in your 2 stars. Again, this is a new timestamp. So as far as like champion upgrade progression, you're going to want to invest as few mats as possible in your 2 stars. Because you want to progress into 3 stars as quickly as possible. You can rank 2 your 3 stars freely, but you should be more considerate when you rank 3 them, and rank 4ing them is something you want to make sure the 3-star is actually worth rank 4ing, because now you're reaching the point where you're investing mats that would be used for 4-star champions in the future. So that said, use tier lists, ask YouTubers. Feel free to ask me. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions, or ask high-rated members. I'm talking greater than 300,000, greater than 400,000 members in your alliance, if you're in an alliance that is diversified like that, to determine who to rank up, because this game is not balanced. The champions, there's a huge strength difference between the weakest champions versus the strongest ones, and just be mindful that, even like God tier 3 stars can take you very far in this game. And so just be careful with that rank up decision, as those materials are very valuable, especially as a new player. New timestamp. This one, go ahead and look in the link description below, but I will have a link for learning to parry and a link for learning to dexterity. So now that you've been playing the game and you've had your prioritization going on, you're going to want to learn how to properly parry and how to properly dexterity. Dork lessons, shout out to you. Your links are the ones I'm using, because you have awesome videos for teaching new players how to do these things. And so these are the links I've posted in the description below. And if that's a copyright thing, Dork lessons, please, just let me know. I'll take the links out of the description, but I'm hoping that you're like, hey, this is someone who's promoting my videos and you appreciate it. But if it's something you don't want me to do, I totally respect that. I'll take them out of the description below. Just let me know and I will do so accordingly. Next up is learning how to maximize your arena grind. So when you are maximizing your arena grind, if you're someone who's doing it, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to spend all of your time in this arena called Summoner Trials here, on the first day that the arena rotate starts. So Monday at noon or Thursday at noon, you're going to want to spend any time you spend in the arena. You're going to either want to spend in Summoner Trials. I apologize, not Summoner Trials. You're going to want to spend in the 3-star arena. And you're going to just want to see how many points you can get. Because you're in this beginner bracket, if on the first day, at the end of the day, when you go to sleep, let's say you've gotten somewhere between 80 and 100,000 points. If you have somewhere between 80 and 100,000 points, spend the rest of the 2 days only grinding this arena, because you have a strong chance of getting this champion. And then when you end somewhere around 270, 280,000, go ahead and split your points up elsewhere. If you aren't getting that many points after day 1, you're getting maybe like 50,000. What you're going to want to do is jump into Summoner Trials, and then you're going to want to dump points into here. Make sure you end the 3-star featured on a milestone for points. Grab as many points as you can in Summoner Trials, and then once you've done your Summoner Trials, jump into the 3-star featured one and run your 3 stars through that arena. So essentially the priority goes that the arena you run in, you want to run the highest ranked champion you can, the highest star champions. So in the 3-starred, you can run 3-star champions, so you only run 3-star champions in this arena. In the Summoner Trials, you can run 1 and 2 stars, so you only run 1 and 2 stars in there. And eventually, when you get 4 stars, you'll only run your 4 stars in the 4-star basic. And that is under the assumption you're not going for the champion. Learn how to look up videos or guides and suggestions on what the cutoffs are to understand whether or not you can go for a champion, because if you can go for a champion, it's worth only going for that and saying screw the milestones and the units and stuff. But if you can't, you want to distribute your champions based on which arena they match the best, and then redistribute them on the last day once you're starting to hit milestones. And you want to make sure you end on milestones everywhere, just for the most efficient grinding. If you have any questions on that, I know arena grinding is very complicated. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll try to answer more specifically for your case. So next up, there are crystals. And for here, I want to just talk about what you can save and what you should open. So you're going to open up all of your shard crystals, premium hero crystals, 3-star crystals. Open those up on cooldown. As soon as you get them, open them up. Those are more champions to have. The lesser solo crystals and the greater solo crystals, hold on to these until you feel like you're ready to push for a champion in the arena, because the most common item that you get out of these that like goes into overflow is arena point boosters. So when you're ready to push for an arena character, go ahead and open these up, and then you'll have arena point boosters, and then go ahead and use those on your arena grinding. You know, even early on, I know it feels like a waste, like maybe you want to save them for later, but it's better to use them early and start getting champions early than it is to save them for the long run. And then later on, when you're like pushing 55, 60 days in, then you'll start saving them for a later grind date. Next up, as far as crystals, you know, don't buy any of these. But your daily free crystal, the one you get every 4 hours, save that. Don't open them. Just click, claim it, and then click off of it. And then only open these when you need to heal. If you're in a quest and your guys are low and you need to heal and you don't have any potions, then come back and open these up, because it's mostly potions, every once in a while it's a revive, but it's almost always potions. And so these go into overflow, and you don't want them to be expiring and then, you know, you're not using them and it's a lost resource. You can see I have 68 here because that's just how often I can pop and claim it but never even use it. So that's a good stash to have for the future. These gold crystals, open if you need the gold, but if you don't need the gold, save them, because there's an event where you can get more gold for every gold crystal you have. If you get a 2-star crystal, open them up. Don't do versus crystals. Quest crystals, you should open up as a new player for a long time, but eventually when you find yourself past the beginner stages, you'll save these just for when you need the ISO, because that's all it's good for. You'll have a daily crystal, a 24-hour crystal. Feel free to open that one on cooldown, at least as a beginner. Eventually you'll save them, but for the beginning part, you don't need to worry about saving those. And then you've got arena crystals. So my suggestion with the arena crystals is to open these up maybe every 5 or 10, just because it's kind of a drag to pop in here and open them up one at a time. But you do kind of want to open them up fairly frequently, because you are hoping to get that Punisher. It is another champion to run in the arena, and once you've gotten Punisher, feel free to start stashing these and then only opening them up when you have a whole bunch of them, or when you need the units, or when you need the gold. This is another good source of both of those. And when you are finally, like, you get every time you get a new mastery point, or as you're fishing to upgrade your masteries, feel free to open these, as this is one of your major sources of units in the game. Also, just a quick note for the arena, don't run the 1v1 arena. It's not worth it unless you're like literally only have one person left on your rotation and you're just trying to get that one extra run. Go ahead and do it at that point, but for the most part, don't do it. And then finally, just the last tip is, if you are running dungeons, find a friend, find multiple friends. I believe you want to find 4 friends, and run each day of the dungeons with a new friend. It's not each day, it's every like 3 days or so, because you're going to get an extra reward for doing it with a friend, and it's much faster. Preferably someone in your alliance if you're like online, or someone you can talk to in person. It's much quicker, and it's definitely worth doing it. When you do it with like the random people, sometimes it's just really painfully slow. So that's my tip there. That said, that's the beginner guide I have. If you have any questions, or there's not anything I covered, feel free to ask in the comments, and I will try to answer the best I can. But that said, this video has gone on longer than it needs to, and I will talk to you later.